This is VOA Africa.
Good evening, I'm Esther Gidui-Ewart. It's Friday, October 4th. This is Africa 54. The United Nations calls for an end to the forced evictions of entire communities in Nigeria. Ethiopian President Sahle-Work Zewde discusses regional security and the country's relationship with Egypt. And Africa 54 gets jersey with Grammy Award-winning clarinetist Oran Etkin. We begin tonight in Nigeria, where the nation is gripped by a crisis that has left the continent's most populous country ill-equipped to properly house its residents, according to a United Nations official who also called for an end to the forced evictions of entire communities. Francesca Lena reports.
Nigeria is ill-equipped to properly house its inhabitants. That's according to this United Nations rapporteur speaking in Abuja following a 10-day visit.
There is a huge amount of corrupt money flowing directly into housing. Luxury housing units are being created and left vacant. Private cities are being built within cities, while the bulk of the population remains unhoused.
Faha also criticized the use of force by state government authorities and property developers to evict entire communities, often to make space for luxury housing. The housing crisis is felt the most in Lagos City, which has become a primary destination for rural to urban migrants. Millions flock every year, attracted by the idea of economic opportunities and GDP growth. But the demand for property ownership drives inflation on housing. Olawale Ayilara, who runs a real estate company, says the way in which housing units are constructed is part of the problem, suggesting there should be more focus on building apartment blocks to accommodate the high numbers. For the last decade, northeast Nigeria has been gripped by the insurgency waged by militant Islamist group Boko Haram, forcing around 2 million people to leave their homes, only adding to the housing crisis. The United Nations estimates that Nigeria's population will double by 2050 to around 400 million people. That would make it the world's third largest nation, behind India and China.
That was Francesca Lena of Reuters reporting. Gunmen in northern Nigeria abducted 6 girls and 2 staff members Thursday from a boarding school in a region notorious for ransom kidnappings. A police spokesman says the armed men gained entry into Engravers College, a boarding school that hosts boys and girls in a remote area just south of the city of Kaduna. The school is located far to the west of an area notorious for attacks by Boko Haram. Police say they have deployed units to the area for a possible rescue of the victims as they hunt for the gunmen. Boko Haram grabbed worldwide headlines in 2014 for the abduction of 276 schoolgirls from the remote northeastern town of Chibok in Borno State. Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari says that a wave of deadly violence against Nigerians and other foreign nationals in South Africa last month was an embarrassment to the continent. Buhari met South African President Cyril Ramaphosa on Thursday, where the two leaders sought to mend ties while signing a range of trade and cooperation agreements. Here's Matthew Larotonda.
Presidents Muhammadu Buhari and Cyril Ramaphosa presented a united front on Thursday at the end of a 2-day visit by the Nigerian leader to South Africa. The trip comes weeks after a wave of violence against Nigerian nationals in Johannesburg and Pretoria, which strained relations between Africa's top 2 economies.
We have expressed our deep regret at the events of the past few weeks that manifested themselves through attacks that were directed at foreign nationals.
Our 2 countries have also agreed to unequivocally address the challenges in our relations including recent people-to-people challenges that saw attacks against foreign nationals, including Nigerians and their properties, which we strongly condemn. We have decided to work and take concrete measures together to prevent the reoccurrence of such unacceptable incidents in the future.
The two leaders also pledged to deepen economic ties and signed 30 trade and cooperation agreements. Nigeria is one of South Africa's largest trading partners on the continent, accounting for 64% of South Africa's total trade with the West African region.
Matthew Larotonda of Reuters with that report. In part two of Ethiopian President Sahle Worki Zewde's interview with VOA's Solomon Abate, she was asked about gender parity in government and what role she hopes to play in ensuring regional security, including Ethiopia's relationship with Egypt and tensions surrounding the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam.
If the history of Africa was written by Africans and by women Africans, I think we would find many unsung heroes who are women. But that's not enough. We know the state of affairs. In Ethiopia, the government has taken a bold decision to bring gender equality and women empowerment at the heart of what we do. My coming here is a result of that. Half of the cabinet. And
yeah, you mentioned that on the General Assembly.
Yes. I mean, I wanted to test them. If they close their eyes and say, oh, we call to the podium the president of so, they will wake up to say, oh, is it a woman? Because it's so rare. I think we have had 2 or 3 African female presidents addressing the assembly out of 54. So there is a lot to do, but there is a good prospect in Ethiopia. The job has started in a very big way. It's for all of us now to make sure that the gap is filled, that women can grow along the ladder and be selected to any position, to have more women in the marketplace, in the job marketplace, to have more women entrepreneurs and so on. There is a huge awareness currently that women should have their place, that they should get their due. So I think this will help us move forward. But of course, this will be done also with other countries of similar situation. And we have seen some encouraging steps. You look at what has happened in Sudan. We have more female in key positions. So this definitely will have to continue.
Mm-hmm. And at last, Madam President, let me take you to the regional issues. Now, the Horn of Africa is always somehow volatile and full of tense situations. What role can you play to bring these countries together? How can you picture the relationship between Egypt and Ethiopia in relation to the Great Renaissance Dam Ethiopia is building now?
You know, the current Ethiopian government, what is characteristic about it regarding the region is that it has a bold regional agenda as well. The government has understood that the progress of Ethiopia will be limited if the whole region doesn't come together. So we're working hard. I really admire this position that the government has, that as much as we think about national, we also think about regional. Our fate is interrelated in any case. On Egypt, we have a good relationship with Egypt. I can't say otherwise. But the issue of the Nile is to have an equitable and sustainable, share, and there is a framework, a legal framework for that. So we want those who are not in the fold to come to the fold and agree that this is the way we should be doing. We really would like to create a conducive environment for the technical people to work on it and to come with evidence-based, results so that politicians decide.
That was Ethiopian President Saleh Worki Zewde speaking with VOA's Solomon Abate. Construction of the $4 billion dam in Ethiopia has been delayed 5 years now as engineers replace shoddy work by a conglomerate pulled off the job last year. Here again is Matthew Larotonda.
Construction of Ethiopia's $4 billion dam project has been delayed by 5 years to fix and replace what an official on the project is calling shoddy work. The latest controversy to hit the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, a project at the heart of the country's bid to become Africa's biggest power exporter. It's faced many issues since it was first announced in 2011. Neighboring Egypt sees the project on the Nile River as an existential threat to its fresh water supply. And Metec, the military-industrial conglomerate responsible for much of the construction, was pulled from the project last August over corruption charges. Now, the deputy head of the project, Belachu Kasa, says engineers are having to replace some of the steel structural work done by Metec. A group of foreign companies, including from Italy, France, and China, are now fulfilling the contract. The dam was initially supposed to have been finished a year ago.
That was Reuters reporter Matthew Larotonda. Here's the latest on a story first reported by VOA. A UN human rights expert is expressing concern over the working conditions of North Korean workers abroad in response to a VOA report that uncovered North Korea's illicit labor activities in Senegal. Thomas Ojea Quintana, UN Special Official on Human Rights in North Korea, said during an interview with VOA Korean service on Thursday that it is quite revealing about this situation of the system that exists in North Korea regarding workers abroad. Quintana said the VOA report reflects that the system remains as it was conceived since the outset. The VOA report revealed that approximately 30 North Korean workers were laboring under poor conditions at various construction sites in the Senegalese capital of Dakar in September. The UN envoy plans to reach out to Senegalese authorities and urge them to comply with basic labor standards. Muhammad Sanusi II is the 14th Emir of Kano in Nigeria. He was crowned in June 2014 following the death of his grand-uncle Ado Bayero. Emir Sanusi was a banker and former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. VOA Hausa journalist Baba Makeri recently spoke with the Emir about his campaign empowering women and girls.
I mean, the reality is that women are human beings, and they're entitled to fundamental rights. And across the world, there are a lot of injustices against women to varying degrees. If you follow what happens in northern Nigeria, you find men marrying women, taking them out of school, then after years divorcing them arbitrarily, not maintaining them, not providing for them, not providing for the children. And it is the responsibility of leaders to address such injustices. So for me, it's not so much about empowerment as about justice, as about giving women there are our mothers, there are our sisters, there are our wives, there are our daughters, and we all have to work hard to make sure that we protect them. And there are many intersections of inequality. They suffer as women, they suffer as poor people, they suffer as rural people. And so you cannot create a stable society without addressing these injustices.
Emir Sanusi also talked about how social media can be used as a tool to positively affect Nigeria's youth.
As a UN SDG advocate, I'm thinking of opening social media handles specifically for SDGs. To focus on development issues in Africa and around the world, to push this agenda, to do advocacy for the girl child, for the boy child, to make contributions to economic policy and economic thought, and to share some of the ideas that I think are relevant for development.
I am Shaka Sali, host and senior editor of VOA's international call-in talk show, Straight Talk Africa.
Today, we'll examine the tobacco industry.
We pretty much touch on anything that you can think of. Politics, health issues, human rights issues, you name it, we talk about it. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent. A very, very rare and unique opportunity to interact with their leaders.
The lyrics could be French,
English,
Portuguese,
Bantu,
Arabic.
It is the beat.
The African beat that counts.
The beat does all the translations.
It cuts across all languages and gives us the understanding that this is the African beat.
It is so distinct
and adhesive.
It binds us together.
African beat on the Voice of America. For more information, visit our website at www.voanews.com/AfricanBeat.
I'm Clara Frank, and here's what's trending. Sudan has launched a women's football league, a move that reflects the new transitional government's aspirations for the country and allows female players to push for wider acceptance. Both male and female fans cheered in the stands Monday as the El Tahadi and El Difa teams graced the country's oldest sports stadium in Khartoum in the league's opening match. The league includes 21 teams from across Sudan, and the match was officiated by female referees. A past attempt at an unofficial women's league featured only 3 Khartoum teams. Next up, with just weeks to go until the UK is due to exit the European Union, 10 artists have exhibited works imagining Britain's post-Brexit future. These dark visions are part of an installation at the 10th anniversary of Moniker International Art Fair in London. The dystopian works depict a Britain left poorer and traumatized after separation. The UK is due to leave the EU on October 31st, but a deal is still yet to be reached. And finally, ride-hailing company Uber is taking to the air in New York City, where users with a little cash to spare can now book helicopter flights to John F. Kennedy International Airport through their apps. The roughly 8-minute flight will cost between $200 and $225 per person and include ground transportation on either side of the trip. Passengers can bring along a small suitcase and have to watch a safety video before takeoff, similar to that on an airplane. And that's what's trending today.
The impeachment battle into U.S. President Donald Trump's presidency is likely to worsen the sharp political divide within the country. VOA's Jim Malone explains.
Schiff has now been proven to be a liar. We've known it for 3 years because they've been trying to impeach for 3 years.
At the White House, President Trump is in battle mode over the Democratic impeachment inquiry.
People have said to me, how does he handle it? Because it's all a fraud. And because of that, and because I know that I'm right, and because I'm doing a great job for the American people, I'm very, very happy living the way I'm living.
Trump has also ramped up his attacks on the news media.
But much of it is corrupt. It's corrupt. You have corrupt media in this country, and it truly is the enemy of the people. Thank you very much.
Congressional Democrats remain focused on Trump's phone call with Ukraine's leader and his appeal for help in trying to find political dirt on Democratic presidential contender Joe Biden. Democrat Adam Schiff.
To try to effectively coerce a foreign leader that is completely dependent on our country for military, economic, diplomatic, and other support, to intervene in our election to help his campaign. It's hard to imagine a more corrupt course of conduct.
The conversation that I had was absolutely perfect.
Trump has denied any wrongdoing and described the exchange as a perfect call. But legal expert Paul Schiff-Berman says the allegations are serious.
The entire purpose and content of the call, as released by the White House, is only to further the president's personal political efforts to hurt one of his political opponents. And that's an abuse of power and authority that goes beyond anything I think we've ever seen.
But is Trump's behavior serious enough to warrant removal from office? That's the whole point of the impeachment inquiry, says expert Thomas Schwartz.
I think the real question will be whether it rises to the level of an impeachable offense, and I think that's going to be, it might be helpful there in the investigation if they can find a pattern of this type of behavior in his other interactions with foreign leaders.
The impeachment battle is already hardening feelings about Trump among both supporters and opponents, and will likely worsen the already sharp partisan divide in the country, says William Galston.
The polarization is both increasing and deepening, and there is no getting around the fact that we are in for months of conflict around this issue. It will pour gasoline on an already raging fire, I'm afraid.
The impeachment debate effectively becomes the opening round in the 2020 presidential election battle, says John Hudak.
The next 5 to 8 weeks is probably going to tell us a lot more about the 2020 presidential election than the last 3 years have.
Trump is no stranger to political battles, and the next one could be the defining moment of his presidency. Jim Malone, VOA News, Washington.
It's time for our entertainment segment. It's also time to get jazzy with Grammy Award-winning clarinetist Oran Etkin. He draws inspiration from African traditional music and master musicians to create compositions for clarinet. Joining us now is VOA Music Time in Africa host Heather Maxwell. Happy Friday, Heather.
Thank you, Esther. Hello, everybody. Have you ever heard clarinet in African music? Think about it. Well, Grammy-awarded clarinetist Oran Etkin creates beautiful jazz with musicians from across Africa. It takes a village to raise a child, or as one Malian proverb goes, boloding kile te beleta. One finger can't pick up a stone. Oran joined me in the studio recently, along with Kwame Ofori, and shows just how much those proverbs are true in music as they are in life. Oran's latest album, just released in August, highlights children's music in Zimbabwe. I'm Heather Maxwell's Music Time in Africa, and our next guest has just popped in the studio. Hi, Oran.
Hey.
How are you?
Great to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, so normally, you know, we have African musical guests on the show, but you're different. You're an American, born in Israel.
Born in Israel, exactly.
But have grown up in New York City.
Yeah, I moved to Boston when I was 4, and then I moved to New York in 2002.
Oh, okay, so Boston, New York. And you're a clarinetist, and you work and continue to work with African musicians. So my first question for you is, what draws you to Africa?
Oh, well, for me, the music feels so like home to me. You know, I mean, first of all, I grew up playing jazz here when I moved to America, and when I started playing African music, I was 19 years old. I went to Mali and spent a lot of time there and working with them, and it feels so familiar to me. All the roots of American music are in Africa.
You went to Mali when you were 19?
Yeah, yep. I went with Joe Kamara. He's a great percussionist who lives in Boston. He took me there, and I lived with his family and played with Tumani Jabate and Habib Koite and stuff there.
Oh, greats.
Yeah.
Well, let's listen to this live recording that you did then in 2009, and this one is Gratitude. I'm obsessed with this song. This is a live studio recording of Gratitude, and then we'll talk about it a little bit during the song.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's take a listen. Okay, so Kwame, it's
pretty awesome.
I felt that.
And this is a live recording. That's the beauty of jazz, partly, is some of the best recordings are live.
Yeah, exactly.
So who all is on this recording?
So it's Lina Lueke, who's a good friend of mine, and we've been playing together since 2002.
And he's playing guitar, like it sounds like a kamelengoni.
Yeah. He's putting some paper inside his guitar to give it that buzz.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's a new one.
And so he's from Benin, and he's very inspired by the traditional instruments.
And it almost sounds like you guys did a lot of experimentation with sound, because the clarinets over Malian music, you don't hear it often. So what came into your head to like go that, take that route?
Yeah, I feel in a way I'm lucky that there is not much clarinet or wind instruments in that. So if I were playing guitar, I'd have so much to draw on.
Yes.
But as a clarinet, I don't. So what ends up happening is, at first I was working a lot with Joe Kamara, the djembe player, and so I started trying to play like a djembe rhythmically. And then I was playing with Bala Tunkara, a great kora player, and then I started playing like a kora player, and then I was trying to emulate the sound of the griot singing. So through the clarinet, I get to experiment by emulating all these different sounds, and then what ends up happening is I develop my own sound. Yeah, that's totally different. Yeah.
Let's listen some more. Who's on bass?
Joe Sanders.
Joe Sanders.
Yeah, he's a great bass player.
Wow.
Yeah, Joe Sanders.
And what is the composition?
So this is a tune I wrote called Gratitude, which for me is the most fundamental emotion. If you have gratitude, that sets you straight for life, I think.
That's fantastic. So for you listeners that don't know Oran, most of you probably don't forget his name. It's Oranetkin.
Listen to that clarinet.
Yeah, that last song was one of Oranetkin's newest pieces that came out of his work in Zimbabwe. Well, that's our entertainment report for today. Now back to you, Esther.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Heather.
Thank you.
All right. Please join Heather Maxwell next Friday for the latest entertainment segment right here on Africa 54. And from all of us, we say good night. Have a great weekend.